Morning everybody, how are y'all doing today? I'm doing great because I am so close to platinum in God of War. I just have like 10 more of those stupid little green ravens to kill and then I'm done. By the way, killing the Valkyrie Queen was cathartic. I'm level 10 on New Game Plus and it still took me a while to kill her, but whatever. Why am I mentioning this? Well, that and Helldivers is why I haven't been uploading much, because I've been sitting on this video that we're talking about today since Friday when we talked about it on stream. Every Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern, you should come and join. It's a lot of fun and you get to make fun of me for not knowing my geography. If you don't get that reference, that means you weren't at the last stream, which, how dare you? But in all seriousness, today we're going to be talking about DreamcastGuy saying once again that Xbox is dead. And Josh actually counted up the videos. I believe he said he's done like 50 Xbox is dead videos this year. So I guess Xbox just has unlimited lives or something like that. Because for a company that's died so many times, they sure are still around. And oh my god, I actually can't believe this. As I'm recording this, 1 hour ago, he uploaded another Xbox video. This time talking about the Activision deal 1 year later. The rent is due for this guy like twice a week, it seems. But we're not going to be talking about that video. Today, we're going to be focusing on the video that, again, we watched it on stream, where he says that Xbox is dead again, this time because the consoles are not going to be sold in the Middle East anymore. And no, I'm not kidding. And to make matters worse, this might actually not be true. But enough of me yapping. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into this and find out how Xbox has died for what, like the 51st time this year now?
What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about the Xbox because a new sales report has just been released that somehow the Xbox console is actually doing worse than last year. Now, last year was actually record-breakingly bad sales, and now they're down another 60%. Microsoft has officially declared they're about to start pulling out of certain markets.
Okay, so I made an editing mistake on the last video where I played the wrong clip from Scrubs and I was also talking over it at the same time, my bad. But somebody commented and said that it was getting annoying how much I used that clip. So for this video, instead of the Scrubs wrong, we will use the Superman Returns wrong. Because DreamcastGuy is straight up lying within the first 45 seconds of the video. Xbox has not officially declared they will be pulling out of some markets, or at least the Middle East, which is what he's saying in this video. In fact, they came out recently, and this isn't necessarily denying the rumors. It's just that really weird, like, corporate buzzword PR talk, you know, all that bullcrap, where they don't really directly address the question. But regardless, they have never confirmed it themselves, at least yet. And the biggest problem I have with this video is just wait until you see his sources. And I use that word lightly, because he basically has the Senator Armstrong source.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Now, what that means is that not only is the Xbox not selling, they're about to stop even shipping them to certain parts of the world. But I want to talk about this because a lot of journalists and gamers are kind of freaking out about these sales numbers because they're so bad, they don't even mathematically make sense. But
spoiler alert, they do, in fact, mathematically make sense. Especially when you consider the part of the world we're looking at, because that's the funny thing about this. You'll notice when he pulls up the tweet. Now, here's the thing. I believe the tweet stating how much up or down the console sales numbers were. This isn't what I'm questioning. The problem is how DreamcastGuy presents it, and you'll see why in a second. Let's take a look.
So this is Christopher Dring, one of the writers over at GamesIndustry.biz, and this is part of a larger report. But what's interesting is that people have been talking a lot about the game industry shrinking. A lot of layman opinions. It seems like the data doesn't back this up. But
well, I guess you would know a lot about layman opinions and your arguments not being backed up by facts. I mean, hell, this video is a great example of that.
Here's the big part, though, that a lot of people are really digging in on. Xbox sales are down 58% this year. Starfield launched last year. Now, some people initially took this as him signaling the fact that sales spiked in September of 2020. And that's not the case. Last year, even though Starfield came out in 2023, it actually did not boost sales whatsoever. I actually found the exact data here.
We all know that DreamcastGuy grifts. I don't think anybody will deny this. My problem is, and maybe I'm incredibly stupid, but It's like with Griffin, I can never tell when he's trolling and when he's being dead serious. First of all, the sales are down 58%. Again, I believe this, but the part that DreamcastGuy fails to mention, and you can see it right in the tweet there, this is talking about Europe specifically. Now, DreamcastGuy just mentioned that people assumed last year in September there was a massive sales spike in Xboxes. I know he said 2020, but I think he meant 2023, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. And then he says that this did not happen. And then he says he has the exact data and pulls up a Reddit thread. Not just a Reddit thread, but a comment on a Reddit thread with no source backing it up. Now allow me to counter his claim with some actual hard evidence. This is a screenshot that was taken on Amazon after the Starfield Direct. As you can see, Xbox sales spiked by 1,000%. Now, you can think whatever you want about Starfield. You can think it's the worst game ever. I know DreamcastGuy hates it, but I don't really care. There is no denying that the game moved a ton of units. Granted, this spike happened in August and probably continued into September, but still. So this quote-unquote exact data you have is just wrong.
Last year, Xbox sales were already down 35%, which was a cataclysmically bad number. This is just literally going down and down and down. I mean, it just seems insane to me that, if anything, these numbers are getting to the point where it's pretty obvious that Xbox is going to die, that Xbox is pretty much in its last death throes.
That's kind of funny. I could have sworn you made like several dozen other videos this year talking about how they were already dead, but I guess now they're going to die soon. Isn't that interesting? DreamcastGuy operates his channel on the monkeys on the typewriter principle. If you somehow don't know what that is, basically it says if you put a bunch of monkeys in a room with a bunch of typewriters and they just keep hitting random keys, eventually they'll type out a Shakespeare play. That's what he does. He just keeps saying stuff until he's eventually right. If you keep saying Xbox is dead, at some point you'll be right. If every year for the rest of my life I say I will die within the next year, eventually I'll be right. Keyword is eventually. And it's hilarious to me, these guys care more about Xbox sales than Microsoft themselves do. If they were so desperate to sell consoles, they wouldn't be putting their games on other consoles. They wouldn't constantly be pushing the fact that you can play Xbox games just on like your Amazon Fire Stick or something like that. They wouldn't be super invested in cloud gaming. They sure as hell wouldn't have just announced that Modern Warfare 3 and Black Ops 6 will be available to stream via the cloud. Like, when are these guys gonna take a hint? They don't care, so why should you?
Now, when I talk about this, people often get upset saying, you're just stirring up console war BS, or I don't truly understand the Microsoft metrics, but I think that if you cannot sell a console, you're going to have long-term problems no matter what, because when it comes to these systems, they do make a lot of money on exclusives. Whether it is Sony or Nintendo or Microsoft, they make a lot of money on exclusives, at least on paper, right? But where you actually make the most money is third-party stuff. I mean, anything that gets sold on a PlayStation 5, Sony takes a direct 30% cut. So if they sell $100 of DLC, the developer gets $70 and Sony gets $30 completely for free. So that's why Sony makes just literally billions and billions of dollars every single year on like Fortnite microtransactions and stuff.
First of all, anybody saying you're stirring up fake console war drama is absolutely correct. And you know damn well that's what you're doing. But it is so funny to me that he spends all this time talking about how important like third-party sales are, which I absolutely agree. I mean, obviously. Call of Duty makes more in a year than God of War Ragnarok, Sony's best-selling game of all time, did. Or at least I should say fastest-selling game of all time. But it's funny because these guys like to say, oh, Microsoft's third-party now, even though Sony is as well. And DreamcastGuy just described Sony gets the 30% cut, and then whoever's publishing on their store gets the other 70%. Guess who owns Call of Duty? The game that makes PlayStation most of their money. That's right, Xbox does. So if you think Sony's making a lot off of that game, with its $billion+ a year, imagine how much Xbox is gonna make off of that, and not just on PlayStation, but on PC and Xbox as well. This dude just spent that time talking about how important first-party stuff is. says how it's so important to sell consoles because you're gonna have problems in the long run. And he completely ignores the fact that Xbox is gonna be making more money than ever before because they now own COD. So guess what? Every time somebody buys a skin in COD or just a copy of the game itself, if it's on Xbox, they get all the money. If it's on Steam, they get like 80+% of it. And if it's on PlayStation, they get 70% of it. If PlayStation makes over $1 billion a year from a 30% cut of every COD game sold, imagine how much Xbox will make off the game when they get 70+% of every sale. And this is the company he says is gonna die soon, or is dead already. I can't even keep track anymore. Do you even listen to yourself? Well, evidently not. You said Black Ops 6 was gonna be the worst selling COD of all time. God, I really want to run a social experiment with DreamcastGuy and Reforge where they get to be in charge of these companies for a few days. And I just want to see how much their profits tank. It would be pretty hilarious.
Xbox has gotten themselves in this weird spot where, because nobody's buying an Xbox, and literally nobody is buying Xbox games, they're not even getting that 30% cut from other people. Now, the reason everybody is just kind of literally shocked is because it just seems like Xbox's big campaign, Xbox has really been pushing the fact that you don't need an Xbox. Xbox is an idea. Xbox is a brand. Xbox is just this nebulous concept.
Yet you still sit here extremely concerned about their hardware sales when they themselves are clearly pushing that you don't need their hardware. Why are you so obsessed with this? I don't get it. And then he says literally nobody is buying any games on Xbox. Dude, again, do you listen to yourself ever? Obviously, people still buy games on Xbox. Maybe not as much as PlayStation because Game Pass, but they still definitely do. And then on top of that, you just used the example with PlayStation that they make so much money off of Fortnite microtransactions. So even if nobody was buying games on Xbox, they're still making a ton of money through microtransactions. Plus, that's not to mention all the sales they get on Steam, because remember, Starfield was the 3rd highest earning game on Steam last year. This guy is literally so stupid, it almost makes it harder to argue with him.
A TV can be an Xbox. Your phone can be an Xbox. That kind of marketing is not selling systems, and I think now it's completely blowing up in their faces way quicker than anybody could have predicted. I thought Xbox would die in about 5 years. They may not last another 2 years, at least not in the current existence.
Okay, now he has to be trolling. There's no way he unironically thinks this. And again, he has been saying Xbox is dead for years now. And now he's saying, oh, well, they'll probably be dead in 2 to 5 years. I swear to God, DreamcastGuy is the final boss of grifters. You know what? I just had a terrible thought, and now all of you have to hear it as well. DreamcastGuy is edging the death of Xbox. You may now boo me.
Even if they are selling subscriptions, even if Game Pass is generating some money, you can't deny the fact that a 58% drop in sales is completely bonkers.
Again, in Europe specifically, and it's not that bonkers when you acknowledge the fact that Starfield significantly boosted sales of the console, especially in Europe where Xbox isn't super popular, and therefore the console is going to have a major fall off after the hype dies down. But what am I saying? This guy is so ignorant of the facts, he doesn't even think Starfield boosted the Xbox numbers at all, because he saw somebody on Reddit say so.
Everybody is pointing out the fact that it just seems like Xbox systems, one of the biggest problems of them is they have so many different variations. There's different versions of disk drive and no disk drive and tiny version, the Xbox Series S, which has much worse graphics and no disk drive. And that's why we're starting to see stuff like this. This morning, there was an official press release internally done, but it's been confirmed that Microsoft is going to stop selling consoles in the Middle East and in North Africa.
And who is it confirmed by? Zubitech of all people? Yet another fantastic quote-unquote source to get your information from. Zubitech is one of the biggest PlayStation fanboys on Twitter, and you're gonna go to him for Xbox news? Are you kidding me? It's like he's trying to pick the worst sources possible to get his information from. And even if this is true, do you really think this is gonna be the death of Xbox not selling consoles in North Africa in the Middle East? If they're pulling out of there, it's probably because they weren't selling anything to begin with. But just wait, it only gets worse. Listen to what he says next.
Now, a lot of people have chimed in that live in those territories, places like the UAE and stuff like that, and they've essentially said that the entire Middle East at this point is just owned by PlayStation. If you want to play stuff, you're either doing it on your PC, but predominantly people play on systems, and it's all PlayStation 4s and PlayStation 5s.
So then my question is, why is this such a big deal to you? Why is it so surprising to you? If PlayStation is the only console that's being sold in the Middle East and North Africa, why is it so surprising to you that Xbox is pulling out of there? If they're not selling anything over there, it is literally a waste of time, money, and resources to continue to put consoles over there. But this is it, guys. This is the 50th smoking gun this year that killed Xbox. What can I say? It was a good run while it lasted.
Now, the reason I feel like this is such a crazy idea to me is that once you've abandoned a market, you can't really go back. I have never, in all my years of light market research and stuff like that, if you pull out of an area, it's very difficult to get back into it. They call it building inroads, meaning that if they're taking out consoles. Now, I looked into this. This is not just taking this out of stores, it's taking out of distributors, meaning that even if for some reason GameStop in the Middle East wanted to stock Xboxes, they can't. It's literally not possible. Microsoft will not ship Xbox to the Middle East flat out, period. So it means that whenever we do get that rumored Xbox handheld or whatever the next Xbox Series console ends up being, whatever, the next generation, when it begins, I don't think they're going to even attempt selling. I mean, these markets are now completely dead to Microsoft.
Yes, once you've abandoned a market, it's hard to get back into it. I agree. That makes perfect sense. But do you really think the people at Microsoft don't know this? If they thought there was any hope of them selling more consoles over there, they would obviously keep doing it. That's why despite Europe being PlayStation dominated, they still continue to sell there. Again, Starfield provided a massive boost despite what you try to claim. Even if sales aren't great, if there's a chance of selling consoles, they'll keep them there. Obviously, they don't see much of a chance of Xbox ever being popular in the Middle East ever again. Now, if they pulled out of Europe or a couple European countries, that would be a much bigger deal. But they're not. They're potentially pulling out of the Middle East and North Africa. Again, I don't even know if I believe it because your source is Zubitech.
I mean, the fact that they're just piling the consoles up on the floor because they're that irrelevant in that market, I think it's pretty clearly showing that Microsoft is getting ready to make their exit. And a lot of people are talking about the fact that Microsoft's marketing for the last couple of years has been saying, we're beyond consoles. It's all about Game Pass.
I can't scream because I have neighbors, but if I could, I definitely would. Actually, you know what? I can. I just grabbed a pillow. Let me do it real quick. We have gone from Reddit to Zubitech to Persona. Reddit, I could somewhat forgive, but Zubitech and Persona are like the dynamic duo of idiots. And right there, you just admitted yourself, Microsoft's marketing for the last few years has been Game Pass. You don't need an Xbox to play your games. You can play them on your TV or whatever, day and date on PC. And yet you still get surprised when the sales drop every quarter. And every time they do, you talk about how the company's dead. Make it make sense. Something is not clicking in your brain. I'm not trying to get too political, but DreamcastGuy reminds me of this meme right now.
Now, I wanted to talk about this tweet I saw because I feel like, in a way, this very much succinctly explains the death of Xbox, in my opinion. Which is this idea about how shows keep getting made by Netflix and then pretty much immediately canceled. And this isn't just Netflix, it's also stuff like Disney Plus. They spent like hundreds of millions of dollars making the Acolyte TV show, which I heard some fans liked and a lot of fans really, really hated. But a lot of this stuff, making it and then immediately canceling it, even after you've invested like $500 million into it, just to instantly cut it.
I mean, I think it's pretty funny that you're talking about, oh, Netflix spends hundreds of millions on these shows, so does Disney Plus, and then they don't do well and they immediately get canceled. And you're trying to compare that to the quote-unquote death of Xbox, when I'm sure if you zoomed out your webcam, you would see a massive elephant in your room and its name would be Concord. Has Xbox had massive projects fail recently? Yes. Obviously, Redfall is the biggest example, but at least you can still buy and play that game. Does anybody else just see how how hilariously ironic it is that he's talking about dumping hundreds of millions into something and watching it fail instantly, when Xbox hasn't done anything like that recently, and PlayStation has? Anybody else find that funny at all? I think you got the two companies crossed over in your mind or something, dude, because I do not get what point you're trying to make right here.
It's very strange to see, and so this quote came out: audiences are being overfed and starved at the same time. And the reason I find this to be such a relatable story to Xbox is because I do feel like Xbox's biggest problem is that when they initially pitched the idea of Xbox Game Pass, when they first sort of came out and explained how this is going to be the future of gaming, how it's going to be the best deal in gaming, on paper, it always made sense of like, okay, they have access to 20 different studios, right? So if each of them is putting out a game that takes 3 years to make or 4 years to make, that means that every single year you could get 3 or 4 really, really big top tier releases. You've got Doom and Indiana Jones and Starfield and stuff like that. But the problem is that just didn't pay off.
I mean, I would say that quote is relatable in general. Don't get me wrong, we've had a lot of great game releases, particularly this year, but there's also been a lot of crap, arguably more bad than good. But I'm just confused. He said it didn't pay off. What do you mean? They're not making enough money? There haven't been enough games coming out? Because in 2022, definitely true. But there were multiple games last year, multiple this year, there's going to be multiple next year, including a new Doom game. I'm just really confused with what he means by this. I guess he probably means Game Pass didn't pay off in terms of they don't have enough subs to justify it. But even then, like before, I would love to see a source for this. And no, Reddit and random PlayStation fanboys on Twitter don't count. Hell, I'll take IGN, just somebody. No, you don't have a source? Okay.
In fact, they're closing studios. Hi-Fi Rush was actually beloved, and they shut them down pretty much the second that game just came out. They finished the ports of putting it on PlayStation and Nintendo Switch and told everybody to get the hell out. Same with Tango Gameworks and stuff like that. Or, sorry, Tango is the Hi-Fi Rush people. But it is weird to me that the idea was always like, hey, stay subscribed to Game Pass, because even if the current slate of games doesn't look good, the next month will be worth it, or the month after that. And now they've left the audience starving.
Okay, this has to be projection at this point, saying they're leaving the audience starving. Hellblade 2 came out earlier this year. Diablo 4 just got a massive expansion drop. Black Ops 6 comes out in 11 days. Indiana Jones comes out in December. Last year, Starfield and Hi-Fi Rush came out, like you just said. I've said this in a lot of videos, but this argument would have been relevant 2 years ago when they literally released nothing. I'm not trying to act like they're releasing an insane amount of stuff this year, but to say the Game Pass audience is starving when Black Ops 6 is about to come out is ridiculous. And that's ignoring third-party stuff that goes onto the service as well. Oh, I forgot Stalker as well. That's coming out in what, November? Also, you know, Shattered Space for Starfield just came out. Again, this is pure projection from him, especially when you consider the fact that the only thing Sony has left on the table this year is a remaster of a 7-year-old game. And I guess Lego Horizon as well. But still, me personally, I will be just grinding BO6 once that comes out.
They bet everything on Game Pass. There's a lot of leaked internal documents and stuff that came out that Phil Spencer essentially said from the very start, we can only be Game Pass. The whole point is Game Pass. Every trailer should say Game Pass. Every reveal needs to say Game Pass. Make sure that everybody only subscribes to that. Because on paper, the math would have eventually worked. If they had 20 million or 50 million or somehow 100 million people all paying $20 a month, that could easily fund the next 10 years of game development. And it just never actually worked out. The numbers matched what they were trying to do, and even now that they're going third party, now that every Xbox game that actually looks good is also coming to PlayStation, it just seems like Xbox really made the biggest bet, and now they have to fold.
You're saying they have to fold, like in terms of Game Pass. Oh, they bet everything on Game Pass and it didn't work, so now they're dead or whatever. Again, need I remind you, Call of Duty is coming out day one on Game Pass in 11 days. Is there room for improvement? Could they have a lot more subs for the service? Absolutely. But how are they folding? Trick question, they're not. If you tried to give an actual answer, that's minus 5 points. 5 points off what, you might be asking? I don't know, I guess your gamer score. But again, it's not just COD. Doom as well, Indiana Jones, Avowed. Like, how are they folding? I don't understand. Also, I don't know what it is, but the way he says, oh, Xbox games are coming to PlayStation now, he makes it sound like it's a bad thing, which makes no sense because one, definitely not a bad thing, and two, this guy plays primarily on PlayStation, so wouldn't he want that? My brain feels like it's leaking out of my ears. Thankfully, we're almost done. How much worse could this possibly get?
But I guess we're going to find out what happens next. I've seen a lot of PlayStation fanboys starting to kind of get nervous, and I think their fear is rather fascinating. Because what's always pushed PlayStation the best is the importance of pressure, the privilege of pressure, to quote Chris Bumstead, Mr. Olympia. He has always said that when you've already won the Olympia, now you have to keep trying to stay ahead. All right, I've already won a bunch of trophies and stuff like that. Now I have to keep fighting hard to keep earning those trophies, to keep basically living up to the expectations. And Sony is best when they have that privilege of pressure. When somebody else is making good games, they actually care about, all right, how can we beat them in sales? How can we beat them in Metacritic? How can we beat them in hype? Without Xbox even trying, I do think that, I do fear very much that Sony is going to pretty much give up as well. Because they don't have to try. They don't have that fear of failure.
First of all, the irony of DreamcastGuy talking about other PlayStation fanboys is just golden, but putting that aside, was Sony not just pissing themselves last year over the idea of Microsoft owning Call of Duty? Like, was that all just a figment of my imagination or something? Also, it's just funny to me because people have been saying for, like, what, over a decade now that Xbox isn't trying, all their games are crap, whatever. And then people like DreamcastGuy talk about how much better Sony's games are, whatever. And now that PlayStation's been fumbling more obviously recently, it's suddenly Xbox's fault. Don't get me wrong, lack of competition is certainly a thing to be concerned about, but again, Xbox just bought Activision and Bethesda. Starfield just dropped last year, was massively successful and pushed a ton of Xbox units. Plus, people have always said for the last decade, oh, Xbox's games are trash, they have no games, PlayStation's just so much better. So PlayStation barely had competition for the last decade, and yet they still pop off, people love the games they put out, and then they have a disaster like this year, and all of a sudden it's Xbox's fault. It's absolutely insane. If they do super well, oh, they're just goats of the gaming industry. And if they do poorly, oh, well, Xbox isn't providing the competition. You cannot make this up. Somehow, to these guys, everything is always Xbox's fault, even when it's PlayStation doing it. And it is beyond hilarious to me that he just said PlayStation doesn't have a fear of failure when they just ate a nearly $500 million loss in the form of Concord. Like, dude, what are you talking about? Please free me from the prison that is this video. I'm kidding, it's not that bad. But still, I've been doing this for over 3 hours. I just want to be done. Thankfully, we just have one more clip. Let's take a look.
But I guess we're going to find out. I just want to do a rambling talk about this because I do think that 58% drop in sales is, I think the warning bells are going off over at Microsoft. I think there's about to be a lot of firings. I think there's about to be a lot more layoffs, like in the number of thousands. And I think that, I think Xbox is done. But we'll find out.
Of course he thinks Xbox is done. Hey guys, just in case it wasn't clear the 50 other times he said it, Xbox is dead. I bet you didn't know that. Hey, you, sir, over there, did you know that Xbox is dead? Because I sure didn't. DreamcastGuy didn't say it enough times. And a drop in console sales, which they already weren't making money off in the first place, is gonna lead to the firing of thousands of more people. Thank God this video is over because I don't know if I can handle anymore. This was bad. And what makes it even worse is Alex beat me to the punch. God damn that man and him actually being able to get a video out on time. Whatever, I'm gonna go get some food and then continue binging JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And then play some Helldivers. That's basically every night for me nowadays. Food, then JoJo, then Helldivers. And a little bit of Platinum and God of War in between. And honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything. But yeah, anyway, with all that being said, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, subscribe if you want to see more. Join us every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern for Salt streams, and I will catch you all next time.